Storytelling in video games is something that's been divisive ever since the game started having stories. Some people think they're great and give the player motivation to keep playing, others will say they're just there and will often try and skip the cutscenes in order to get a move on with the actual game. Love it or hate it though, a lot of video games today have stories in them. Some games even rely more on the story by giving the player the option to control the narrative as one of the core mechanics. Some games even have plots and production values that won't shame Hollywood productions. I could make an entire video about storytelling in video games and how many of them are either good or bad, but in this video I'm going to focus on one franchise in particular, and that franchise is none other than Sonic the Hedgehog. If there's one franchise which I could sum up as divisive, it will be the one starring a blue hedgehog who can run at the speed of sound. Before going into this, I just want to say one thing. Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite character of all time. Not just a video game character, not a cartoony one, he is my favorite character of all time, period, bar none. I am saying this because I want people to know that if I start talking smack about the franchise, something that might happen considering the topic, I'm not doing this in order to hate on Sonic. I'm saying this as a fan of the franchise and nothing more. The second thing I want to point out, which will come into play later, story and tone are two different things. True, at the end of the day, storytelling relies on both, but it's important to note that the tone doesn't make the story, and the story doesn't make the tone. A story is what being presented to you, a beginning, a middle, and an end. A tone is the way in which the story is being told to you, the overall feeling the teller of the story wants to get across in the piece. I'll get more into this later, as it's bound to be mentioned again throughout this video, so now that we got the basics out of the way, let's talk some Sonic the Hedgehog. I guess we can always start in the Genesis games, as they gave the world its first glimpse of the Blue Blow. Well, the story in the Genesis classics isn't anything special, as it can be summed up as a speedy blue hedgehog who needs to save the world from an evil scientist. It's important to know just how different this was back in the day. This was definitely different from the traditional Save the Princess plot, which was featured in many games. Now the world's at stake, and Sonic isn't saving one person, but everyone, which already raises the tension. It's also worth mentioning that Sonic wasn't necessarily the most traditional of heroes at the time. His entire marketing image was based on how much of a sass he is, and how cool he is. Something that not many video game heroes were back then. If you think back to the original Mario and Zelda games, what did you know about Mario or Link's characters, outside of the fact that they're both heroes? In contrast, Sonic shows up in the title screen wagging his finger and smacking at the player. While this doesn't make him three-dimensional in any means, it does give him something more than just good guy. The rest of the Genesis games also had more story in them than what was the standard. The tornado being shot down before Wing Fortress Zone, Tails saving Sonic at the end of Sonic 2, Knuckles constantly showing up throughout Sonic 3 and Knuckles in order to make life harder for you, racing to stop the newly operational Death Egg, the list goes on, really. So we could argue that Sonic was always meant to be about the story compared to other games, but let's talk tone for a second. At the end of the day, no matter how well or unique to the time the story in those games were, the tone was never really that different from what we know. At the end of the day, you were still playing a cartoonish blue hedgehog that runs around in colorful environments and by the end of the adventure sets everything right. Compare Sonic 3 and Knuckles to games like Super Metroid for a second. Both of them had more story than what would be expected from a game at the time and had story elements as part of the gameplay, but at the end of the day, Super Metroid has a darker story than Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I mean, the game starts off with a bunch of scientists being killed off. The baby Metroid you're trying to save ends up sacrificing itself in order to save Samus, and the planet you're exploring is definitely no South or Angel Island. To sum this part of the video up, I think Sonic was always more about its story than some people gave it credit for. However, I don't think it was really all that dark or mature in tone as some people will say. But that is only the beginning of the Blue Hedgehog's long history, and the more interesting parts are yet to come. Sonic made his official jump into the 3D world with this age classic, and one would argue he was never the same ever since. What I mean by that is that ever since the technology allowed for more immersive and bigger stories, Sonic never really found what one will call his sweet spot. Some people thought Sonic should stick to the lighter tone of the Genesis originals, while others approved of the darker and more serious approach. Sonic Adventure is forever considered to be the game which split the fanbase in half, and I think it's true for both the gameplay and the story. The gameplay portion is a discussion for another time, so let's talk about the story now. The one thing I'll give Sonic Adventure credit for is its loyalty to the Genesis games, and not just in terms of gameplay. The story, kind of like the Genesis games, is different from what we had back then with 3D platformers, as we race to get the Chaos Emeralds before Eggman, who wants to use Chaos in order to destroy the world. We have big stakes, but we're still playing as a bunch of colorful and silly animals, and there's an occasional cheesy line thrown in every now and again.
Knuckles, don't tell me Eggman tricked you again!
Me? What about you?
Way to go, Knucklehead!
I think this overall tone works for Sonic. It's not trying to be too serious and important because we're playing as a super fast blue hedgehog, but it does have stakes and enough going on to keep the player interested in going through the adventure. The problem is that the story as a whole is a bit messy. Sonic's plot, and by extension Tails, is pretty standard stuff and it gets the job done. Knuckles works well as a side story to these events, as he is the first character to meet and fight Chaos and has the biggest connection to the Echidna tribe. The other characters, however, everyone went over how useless Big is in the grand scheme of things, and Amy and Gamma work well as their own thing, but not as part of the bigger picture. Every character has a purpose. If not, then why would you write them? I honestly feel like Amy, Big, and Gamma have no purpose in this story. Look at the final story where everything comes together. Sonic obviously has a purpose, as he is the hero of the thing. Tails is there to help Sonic get to the city and explain how the emeralds work. And Knuckles is the one to inform Sonic that Chaos survived their fight on the egg carrier. The other three? Gamma dies at the end of his story, and Amy and Big find some emeralds, but it's not like it had to be them. I like Sonic Adventure's tone and I like a lot of its moments, but the overall story is sadly a bit of a mess and has no real focus. Oh boy, we reached one of the big ones. Love it or hate it, I honestly can't tell what's the overall opinion on this game is anymore. Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the most influential Sonic games for a number of reasons. With this game being the first Sonic game being released on the GameCube, a lot of new people found themselves being exposed to the world of Sonic the Hedgehog and becoming fans themselves. It had the most involved plot in the series to date, and it also introduced us to Knuckles' on-again, off-again rival/love interest Rouge the Bat and the ever-so-popular Shadow the Hedgehog. Honestly, everyone on YouTube probably talked about everything that has to be said on this game's story, so I won't drag this on for too long. Like with its prequel, I like the tone of the game for the most part. The stakes are higher and some darker elements like murder make it to the game, but it still feels right and balanced. Sonic is still the sarcastic and cocky hero that can deliver on a punchline when it's needed, and the ending is one of my favorite in the series for how it leaves on a good and yet somewhat sad note. Very rare for Sonic, but it works. Now the story itself. Let me start off by saying that I do find the story enjoyable and the bigger plot is overall miles better than Adventure 1. But I can't ignore all of the plot holes that this game has, and I hope people can understand it. I'm not considering Gun confusing Shadow with Sonic a plot hole necessarily, because it always came off to me as cartoon logic. It doesn't make sense to us, but it's there in order to get the plot going. No, my problems start with everything having to do with Geld and Gun. First of all, it is revealed that Gun were the ones who funded Geld's research, which includes both the Eclipse Cannon and Shadow if I got this correctly. So they signed off on a weapon that could potentially destroy Earths? Who gave the A-OK on this? Eggman does state that the project was shut down because Gun feared it, and assuming he's not talking about Shadow, they only realized halfway through how dangerous this shit could be? Then there's the entire thing with Gun raiding the Ark. Again, who gave the order? The research was shut down, yes, but did they really need to kill the people who were there? How is this any of their fault? Also, where was Geld when this whole thing happened? Was he already off the Ark? If so, how did he program it to crash into the Earth after Maria died? Why would Gun film a video of him promising mankind that he'll get revenge? How was the video transmitted to the Ark? Actually, it is heavily implied that Joel did something to Shadow's memories, but how did he do that if he was in a jail cell and Shadow's capsule wasn't nearby? And to the people who will bring up Shadow the Hedgehog claiming it fixed some of these problems, I have two things to say. One, considering the fact Shadow was supposed to be a one-time character and only came back because of popularity, I'm willing to bet that game wasn't even an idea back when this story was written. Second of all, I'll get to that game in a bit because trust me, I've got some stuff to say about it. To end my SA2 talk on a more positive note, I do like Shadow's character. It felt like this was the first time Sonic met his match, and both of them work off each other really well.
I thought that capsule you were in exploded in
You know,
space.
what can I say? I die hard.
In a sense, you could see Sonic and Shadow's rivalry as an interesting take on the nature versus machine theme the originals had. Sonic was born the way he was, while Shadow was created as part of an experiment, and it's nice seeing that struggle being represented like this in-game. I also like the story behind Shadow and how his main motivation in the end is to fulfill his best friend's final wish. There's a reason why Shadow ended up being as popular as he is, and that's because he was handled really well in his debut. Talk about the ultimate nostalgia game for me. But don't think I'm going to let this cloud my judgment when it comes to the topic of this video, because this game story is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if I have to start somewhere, I want to start off with the good. I do appreciate the simpler story in Heroes compared to the adventure games. It honestly felt a bit refreshing to see something a bit simpler after all the drama that went on in Adventure 2. It's kinda like having Ant-Man and the Wasp after Infinity War. You need to catch a break sometimes, you know? However, I do think the story is too simple. I mean, I have no problem with the plot being underplayed, or that most of the dialogue between characters is shared within the levels, but outright brushing aside plot elements is not what I'll consider good storytelling. I'm, of course, talking about Shadow. Everyone treats his return from the dead as well as his amnesia as no big deal. We do get hints that he may be a robot, but let's at least treat his return with some surprise or some reaction. By the way Sonic reacts when he sees Shadow, I'm just assuming he saw Tails get killed and then come back to life so many times that he may not take that as a big deal anymore. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot to say. I do like the bit cheesier tone and all the lines this kind of writing gives us.
Too bad it's all over. For you!
Metal Sonic being behind everything is a cool idea, but it ends up not being much of a surprise. Even as a kid, I figured out Eggman was Team Chaotix's employer, and Mello shows up in the opening, so what was there to hide? Like I said, there's nothing to really say about Heroes' story. It's simple, to the point, a bit cheesy and predictable, but it does its job fine enough. Something tells me you guys are interested in my thoughts on this game story after I briefly mentioned it earlier in the video. Well, I won't counter on the bush. Shadow the Hedgehog has a terrible story and has a terrible tone. Want me to explain? Let's do this thing. I want to start by stating once again that the story and tone are two different things, and saying that one's terrible doesn't necessarily mean the other suffers because of it. I point this out because I don't want people to think I hate this game's story only because it went in a drastic new direction. I don't like the tone, as I think it tried way too hard to copy Adventure 2's tone without actually understanding what that tone was. But I'm not holding it against the game's overall story. Let's say it like this. You could replace Black Doom with Elf and the rest of the Black Arms with his friends, but keep the overall plot the same. The tone now will probably be really different than what we ended up getting, right? But the story problems I'm about to bring up will still be there, no matter the tone. The problems with Shadow's story begin as soon as you boot up the game. Shadow still has amnesia, which we established in Sonic Heroes. Why doesn't anyone tell Shadow about his past? Why doesn't he ask? Because we need to justify Shadow going on with this journey. And no, an answer like that doesn't count as defense against the above mentioned questions. Saying because game is the laziest excuse, and it's honestly pathetic. Second problem? Aliens. Did anyone ask for this? Was there ever a Sonic fan out there who demanded to see aliens come to Earth and just throw a fit? Was this a demand at any point? But fine, let's say aliens exist in this universe, because why not at this point? Did we really need to connect this to Shadow's origin story? Did we really need an I am your father moment? Did we really need 10 different non-canon endings in order to reach the true final ending? What was the staff meeting regarding this game like? But hey, should we forget that this game connects to Sonic Adventure 2? Let's talk about how for every plot hole fixed, there's 2 more that pop up. With the entire Black Aliens thing coming to play, I can see why Gunn raided the Ark. But then why didn't Gerald tell them about this entire thing and that he intended to use the Eclipse cannon in order to destroy their planet? Why keep that information away from the people that fund your work and you need to answer to? Also, remember how I said I could treat Gunn mistaking Shadow for Sonic as cartoon logic? Well, this game ruins even that approach. If the Gun Commander, who by the way commands the organization which killed his best friend and was like a sister to him in his own words, has a thing against Shadow, then now Sonic being mistaken for him makes no sense. My god, this game's story! Case in point, this game's story is just a hot mess, and I can barely think of one thing I like about it. Also, how's this for writing?
Have it your way, Shadow. So be it. Be prepared to meet your maker. Your past, present, and future ends here. Today. Prepare to die. Say goodbye, Shadow, as you witness my true wrath.
The exact same line written 4 times. How do you mess this up? I don't think there's a lot more to say. This game sucks and its story and tone suck too. Let's move on to the next piece of shit before I lose my mind. But of course, how do you follow one of the stories I hate the most in the series? With another one of those, obviously. Like with Sonic Adventure 2, people probably talked about this game and everything about it on every corner of the internet. One of my friends who's not that big of a Sonic fan told me she heard rumors about this game, so that probably means everyone knows about it. Therefore, I'll keep this short. Sonic 06 is one of the most poorly written stories in any game I've ever played. I'm not sure what there's more to say about this that hasn't already been said. People pointed out the creepy romance between Sonic and Elise. People pointed out how the time traveling rules make 0 sense, how poorly represented Sonic himself is, not to mention boring, useless, and how not Sonic he is in this game. Elise is one of the biggest bitches in video game history. Blaze is one of the most useless characters in that game, and it also ruined her backstory in a sense, and it's really annoying to me because I love Blaze when she's not in this game. Mephiles is kind of an idiot himself when you really think about it. It's just a terrible story, and if you're watching this video you probably know that it is, so I'm gonna stop talking about it. 2 good things I want to point out. The scene where Shadow kicks Silver is magnificent, and the game at least has the decency to erase itself from existence. Also, Silver is kind of a cool character. Such a shame he debuted in a game which doesn't do him justice. That's it. Done with 06. The next one, please. Oh, finally, a game I like. You know what? Fine, let's get this out of the way. The Werehog was a stupid idea, but honestly, I don't have much of a problem with it, especially when it comes to the story, because Sonic Unleashed is my favorite Sonic story from the games. Why is that? Well, allow me to explain. First of all, I think this kind of tone is absolutely perfect for the series. It has the high stakes and the unique plot that the Genesis games had by having the entire world explode at the beginning, thus making Sonic's mission a lot more important. But the game also remembers that we're dealing with cartoons here, and throws a few jokes which are funny every now and again. I still get chuckles from this moment. I also like how Sonic and Chip's relationship is handled throughout the adventure, which leads us to one of my favorite moments in the franchise's history.
I bet it's thanks to you. Even at night when I'm like this, I'm still myself, not like all the other people we've seen. You must have been protecting me this whole time.
I haven't done anything, Sonic. You're the reason you haven't changed at all. You're too strong to lose yourself.
I'm the reason?
Yeah, you never doubt yourself, no matter what. You never give in to the night or the darkness inside your heart.
If you need one reason as to why Sonic is my favorite character, this might be the reason I'll go with. Sonic is so confident with himself that even the laws of nature in this universe can change him or bring him down. That is nothing short of amazing, and in some sense admirable. Everyone already said how amazing the opening scene is, so there's nothing new for me to add, but the entire ending is worth bringing up as well. The fight with the Egg Dragoon is epic. Chip summoning the Gaia Colossus is a great moment for him. The ending is also great, not only for coming full circle, but also for just how well of an ending image it is. I always feel satisfaction after finishing a playthrough and watching that sunset as Sonic runs away with Tails following in the tornado. Is Sonic Unleashed story a masterpiece of storytelling in gaming? Probably not. But for what it is, I love it. When the only big problem I can think of about this story is how are Sonic's gloves coming back after they're ripped apart when he's the Werehog, you know this story is great. Man, it was sure fun talking about Unleashed finally, but now it's time to the one game I know for sure people are going to question my opinion on. I think that in all of my gaming years, I've never seen people being so divided about the game's story as with this game, unless you count David Cage games. Sonic Colors was another turning point for the franchise. For the first time in a long while, critics seem to like this game as opposed to the last few outings. Fans seem to be happy with the game, claiming it was Sonic's long-awaited comeback. But as the years went by, I started noticing that more and more people claim that Colors may not have been as great as most people made it out to be. One of the main criticisms I see regarding this game is the story. And seeing how this video is about the stories in Sonic games, you probably know the drill by this point. But before we get to Colors itself, I do want to point something out. Starting with Colors, writers Warren Graff and Ken Pontac, I hope I pronounced those names correctly, took over writing for the series and has written for every game since Colors. I point this out because now that we have a group of writers who write for every game from this point forward, I'm going to look at the stories through both the overall plot to them and also how they executed the plot. I'll point this out once again. A story and tone are two different things. So if you expect me to say the new stories suck because Pontac and Graff don't understand Sonic with all of these jokes, then sorry to disappoint. The tone of the story doesn't really affect the story itself, as I've stated earlier, and you'll see more examples soon enough. With that being said, let's go over Colors' story. I'll honestly say that in my opinion, Colors has the best story in the Pontac and Graff era. Yes, you heard me correctly. The reason as to why I think this? Well, honestly, it feels like the most complete stories they wrote. The basic premise is Sonic and Tails going to Eggman's new interstellar amusement park in order to save a bunch of aliens he captured to make a mind control beam. That's exactly what we got. We know the setup, we get to know and communicate with the aliens, we see the mind control beam in action, we see what Eggman's doing to the Wisps, and I'll even argue there's a decent use of Chuckles' gun with that robot arm. I really don't think the story is that bad. Now for the tone, which unlike most people, I don't have much problems with either. I mean, yeah, the translator jokes maybe go too far and some of them can make one cringe, but I honestly found some parts funny and I actually think this direction is interesting. One of the things brought up when it comes to Colors is that Sonic and Tails have been stopping Eggman's plans for a while, so I can see why they don't really take this situation as seriously as one would expect. They've done this shtick so many times that it's just like another day in the office for them, which is a different way of presenting character growth. It doesn't make all the jokes work, and I can surely see why some people won't like this change, and even I'll admit this is not the ultimate way to do character development. I guess you could say I'm more fond of the idea rather than the execution? I'm sure some people are angry with what I just said about Colors, but let's see what happens when our two writers decide to take Sonic through time. Talk about a potential that went nowhere. In the Pontac and Graff era of Sonic, I'll say this was the closest in tone to Adventure, Unleashed and so on. But it's hard to tell when there's so little story here. Going back to the whole time travel concept, how much more could have been done with that? Jokes or no jokes, serious or not serious, there was so much story potential in this game that I'm honestly just underwhelmed rather than just liking or disliking this story. We do have a few great moments, so one of my favorite character moments for Sonic is actually in the scene with the supposed mirror.
Take a good look at yourself, Sonic.
Dr. Eggman?
It's the last look you'll get before I close your eyes forever.
Another Sonic? What? Wait a second!
Classic Sonic, the younger and more impressionable hero, at his very start launches into action as soon as Eggman challenges him. Modern Sonic, the older and more experienced hero who's beaten this same guy so many times, is standing there unimpressed instead of jumping into action. It's a quick moment, but I really like it. Generations has some fun moments in its story, but it's years away from being the awesome callback extravaganza it could have been. At least the game itself is really damn fun. It's one of my favorite in the series actually. But now let's move from a game I love with an underwhelming story to a game with an underwhelming story I don't really like. I would have made fun of this game's title in some form or fashion, but I think every possible joke has already been made regarding it, so I just won't try and move on with the thing. Let's go over the concept first. Sonic is chasing Eggman down to a place in the sky called the Last Hex. There we find out Eggman is controlling a bunch of stereotypical creatures known as Zeddy. Due to a reckless mistake, Sonic causes the Zeddy to turn against Eggman, forcing the two enemies to work together. Pretty beefy concept, filled with potential when you look at it like this, right? Well, guess what? The actual story has no real meat to it. What is the Last Hex? We don't know. How did Eggman discover it, met the Zeddy, and get the magic control? We don't know. Why do Sonic and Eggman need to work together? Honestly, because it would make an interesting plot. In theory. Yes, I'm aware that these two have worked together before that, but it was a last-minute team-up. Here, they join forces at an earlier point and it plays more into the story other than the usual things have gone into shit. However, when you really get down to it, was that even necessary? Eggman betrays Sonic at the end, someone gets Shyamalan on the phone because I think somebody beat him, which leads to Tails handling the tech stuff. So why did they need Eggman to team up with him then? And on that note, poor Tails. Where did his outburst in that one scene come from? I get that he's working with a guy who tried to kill him several times before, but he had no problem with that team up one cutscene ago, so what the hell happened? I do like how pissed off he looks when the Zeddy capture him though. Speaking of the so-called Deadly Six, meh. Like I said, they're stereotypes, nothing more to it. You like making fun of the token crazy, token emo, token girl, and so on? They'll probably get a chuckle out of you. The best thing about them for me is the smack talk Sonic gives them. Speaking of Sonic, let's talk about him for a second. One point of this concept that I thought would be really interesting is seeing Sonic handle a mess that he himself helped create. With the type of character he is, I'm surprised this wasn't done before this game. The idea of Sonic being left alone with no one else is also interesting, but these ideas are nothing with such a pure execution. Sonic's downfall after Tails is kidnapped is so rushed that it might have gone by faster than Sonic himself. While Sonic does admit his mistake, he doesn't seem to really learn from it by the end of it all. The one scene that's the most interesting one, where he is alone without anyone, lasts only a few seconds, and one scene later Tails is back by his side. What is this pacing? Without dragging this on for too long, this entire thing is just a lost potential. And yes,
Pun entirely intended.
let's just move on to forces and close this thing. I've said this for Last World and I'll say it again for this. Wasted potential. If there was one Sonic game where I was really looking forward to its story, it was this one. Because the concept here is that Sonic lost. After years of being the obvious victor in the fight against Eggman, Sonic the Hedgehog made his match. I love Sonic, as I stated at the start of this video, so seeing him going up against a villain who might have a chance seemed like a very interesting idea. What we got was a villain who in all fairness is really cool looking and has some cool powers and an interesting voice, but his backstory is so ridiculous to the point I can't take this guy seriously. Was this the writer's idea of a deep backstory? Cause that ain't deep, it's lame and laughable. It couldn't have been that hard to give Infinite an interesting backstory, right? I don't need this to be Shakespeare, I just want something that makes sense. And speaking of not making sense, this game's tone is all over the fucking place. We start the game with Sonic being defeated and his friends believe him to be dead and Tails has apparently lost it because of it. Well, seconds later we receive intel that Sonic's alive and we see Tails fixing Omega like it's no big. And don't get me started on how Sonic was supposedly tortured, yet acts like nothing ever happened to him. It's safe to assume Pontek and Graf learned how to write, correct? Did they skip the lesson when they tell you show, don't tell? Because I'm seriously starting to think they missed it. There's a reason why this rule exists. And that's because if the audience is shown contradictory information, what you're saying doesn't matter, and the audience doesn't take it seriously. The Avatar can be a fun addition to the story because you can literally make up his entire backstory in your head. Mine is a geeky podcaster who witnesses two co-casters being killed by Infinite during their annual meetup. Wanting to seek revenge for his good friends, he joins the Resistance and has to learn how to fight his own battles outside of the computer screen. Something tells me I put more thought into this than the writers did the whole thing. I would mention classic Sonic, but there's no point. The idea of connecting Minion and forces together is noble, but this adds nothing in the long run to the point I started asking for a point. Forces had the right concept and the right tone in mind, but everything I mentioned up until this point doesn't allow me to enjoy the story we ended up getting. So, now that we've gone over everything, what's for the future then? I honestly don't know. My best idea is to wait for Sega to announce the next main game and see what they got in store. I would like the game to be the main focus, but a good story can't hurt, right? I know I skipped some games like the Riders games, which I honestly don't care for their stories much. The storybook games, Secret Things is fine and I really like Black Knight's story. Boom! That may need its own video. I hope you had fun listening to me rant about the stories of Sonic the Hedgehog. Agree? Disagree? Heard something you didn't expect to hear? Tell me in the comments below. Just be mature about this please, it's just an opinion at the end of the day. Thank you for watching and catch you later.